Hey everybody, welcome back for, as far as you're concerned, take one.
That's right.
Filming of
We've
this
never done this
episode.
before.
So, yeah, we're back. We got something cool for you guys. We're going to do a continuation.
Yes.
Never done one of those before.
Yep. Part 2.
Of the separation of church and state.
That's
and
right.
Then we're going into taxes. And if you watched last week's show, you would already know that.
Correct. You have to keep on these, otherwise you won't know what's happening in subsequent episodes.
Correct.
Try to place those little seeds to keep you interested. So, yeah, this will be a good one.
We need segue music.
Yeah.
Because I would say, but first, and then it would go like,
Da, 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 da. Yeah.
Yeah. How was your week? It's literally been a week.
I think it would be great too if it was like that 70s like daytime show music was. Yeah, man. Yeah, you get it completely what I'm saying.
I'm hearing it, yeah.
That should be it. Like a little segue like into this.
Yeah. I'll work on that.
So yeah, exactly a week, which that's cool and that's exciting too.
Yeah. I don't know if it's exact. I lied.
Shut your mouth.
What?
They don't know.
What?
It hasn't been just a week.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I was like, wait, what? What happened?
In case you didn't know, everything that we were looking at before is now on our right.
Yeah.
So if we're glancing to the right, that's because we're to the right.
Yeah, it's very strange. But we have a nice backdrop. It's less busy. We're figuring things out.
Yeah, and we're working on a new mic. Eventually we'll be talking into this mask.
Yeah, there'll be eyes that light up.
Yeah, and then eventually it'll come to life.
Oh, hey, I wrote it right up here. Episode 26.
Oh, yeah.
Big things.
26.
Yeah.
I like it.
You know, maybe for 30 we'll see if we can name them all. I can't.
I was going to say, I predict I will not do that well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even study a little bit. I still don't think I'll do great.
I mean, I can memorize anything, but if you asked me to do it right now, I'd probably come up with like 10. 10-ish. It's not that they don't matter, but there's so much that goes into each one. I sort of like pack it away, stick it to the back. Church and State Part 2.
Correct. I know. I was like looking at my phone and like seeing the tabs that were still open from last week's show.
Yeah.
And I was like, incorporation, doctrine.
I've reread things, and you reread them, you're like, I swear this is familiar. Oh, yeah, I read this. Yep. You're like,
Yeah, I know. Some of it's nice. Oh, I'm going to do this early in the show. Crack one open.
Starting the weekend early.
A nice, cool, refreshing seltzer water.
Lemon lime. Lemon lime flavor. 0 calories.
They really are nice. Yeah, I don't like the ones with sugar in there. I mean, not because I don't like sugar. It's weird.
Well, if you drink it a bunch, like I feel like you get that taste of like the syrup in your mouth. So I like
crisp.
I'm a kind of crazy person that scrapes frosting off of cake, so I don't like super sweet things.
I mean,
like probably good for my health.
Yeah, I'm the same here. I remember I wrestled briefly in high school, and we went to a meet, and they gave me like $5 to go get something from the McDonald's next to the school because it was like an all-day thing. And I got pancakes with no syrup and no butter, and my coach was like, "This kid is taking it serious."
Yes.
Like, no.
Meanwhile, you're rolling home, you're whipping out a freaking stick of cheese and putting it in a tortilla, a little flour tortilla, rolling that mofo up. I mean, that's what you ate for like
years. Literal years. The cheese would change.
But the tortilla would not.
And that's what was sad. It was Aztec home style.
For a while, didn't you eat bread? Like you would take bread and just eat plain bread, like mashed up or something?
Yeah, I still am not against doing that. Tastes great.
Me either. I mean, I get it, but
yeah,
you had a very interesting palate and diet.
Yeah, that's why I looked like a skeleton most of high school, though.
Correct, you've rounded out.
I have.
You filled out a little bit.
I have a lot of it, but that's okay.
So,
yeah,
since it passed a week, my turn to ask, how was your week?
It doesn't even feel like it's been a week. It feels like it was like yesterday. Yeah, I'm serious. Like, class is picked up, and I'm doing a publishing class, and the guy said it was going to be bad the first 2 weeks, and lived up to that. Like, fully lived up to that. Bad.
This is how we're going to preface this class.
I know. It was crazy. We had to track down income source, all the income sources for a song. Yes. But it was a really neat. It was a neat experiment, and we got some access to numbers because he was involved with the catalog. So I don't want to like name songs or anything.
Right.
But the song in question, like source revenue, like just from itself, generated like an insane amount of money, like $22 million.
So you were able to actually track it down.
Yeah.
That was my question: was how do you actually figure this out?
Well, he gave us some figures to play with. Some of it's set, like like there's a mechanical rate, which is 9.1 cents per like digital download and stuff like that. So some of those numbers are pretty easy to get and kind of figure out what they are. As far as Spotify and stuff, he told us don't even mess with that. Spotify's pay algorithm changes like moment to moment, and it's different country to country.
How do they manage a contract with an artist if they're paid?
Hmm.
But they probably put in the contract that their pay algorithm is subject to change without notice and whatever else legalese.
So this is like I can't. I mean, I don't know the specifics, but let's say it's like one of the big record industries, and they're going to allow their artists to be played on Spotify. They'll put in there that says, "Hey, when somebody is streaming, I want X number of plays from our record label on that." So there's some.
There's finagling going on.
Yeah, you may feel like you're getting an organic playlist,
yeah,
but it's not as organic as you may.
Oh
suspect.
yeah. Well, there's clear, like certain, especially like Pandora. That's my go-to. Has been forever. I never changed.
Pandora's another similar one.
So
Guaranteed plays. Yeah.
So I know, like when I like salsa. Sometimes I listen to salsa music when I'm working and cleaning in the house, and it will play so many. It'll not just play the same song if you give it long enough, or like if I play it on one weekend and then play it the next weekend, I'll hear the same song in that playlist again. So what you're saying makes sense, but I'll hear different renditions of the same artist of the same song, or different artists of the same song being covered. There's this one song called. Am I gonna get in trouble on YouTube or anything by naming a song on here?
No, no, no.
There's a song, a salsa song. Shout out to you salsa listeners. Named Yo No Sé Mañana, which is actually a really good song. You should listen to it. You would like it. Maybe some of the listeners would like it. But that song is played. There's one guy I like that does it really well, and then all the other ones I'm like, it's like second to that dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. Sorry,
Yeah,
salsa segue.
Publisher's gonna make money every time that plays, regardless. Label will too, in some regards.
Good for them.
Yeah.
So you're into the thick of it.
I'm in the thick of it. It's crazy, but I'm excited. So like I'm trying to put a little class together to offer to musicians starting off too, where they can learn just kind of the basic ins and outs and how to start making money with their music now from whatever town, wherever they're at. So more on that later. A little side project. If you
Right.
will. How was your week?
Like you, the week it blurs together the days.
Yep.
My issues mainly. It's a year in school, and so your schedule is jam packed with kids and school and homework and trying to carve out time for yourself and all that, which I get is ridiculous. Mine is more of a cramming in of things. I'm starting a new job, so I'm like trying to get things cleaned up, and there's a lot of things on my mind. I'm not sleeping well, so it's just one of those deals, you know.
Once the wheels start turning.
Yeah. And my daughter scared the hell out of me this morning at about 3:30, and I didn't sleep since then. So you're getting round two, Brent, right here.
Yeah, I have that issue as well, and like I think I'm in a minority of this, but like I like a TV on when I sleep.
Yeah, I like a fan. I need white noise, but not a TV turned down low, where I can. If I had the TV on, I'd probably like put the blanket like close to my face so I could block some of the light. But I can fall asleep with the TV on like that. If it's on like a movie playing loud, I'm like, no way, I'll never fall asleep.
Yeah, no, my wife, like it's so funny. Like she's like, I can't sleep with the TV on. Yet every night we try to watch a movie together. I seemingly watch her fall asleep.
You guys literally have watched movies, going to bed, and TV on since we were kids.
That was me. She didn't. She made a sacrifice for me.
Freaking, I remember several people. I won't name them because it may not be kind to name. But anyways, one of the individuals slept with the radio on like loud, like listening loud. I'm like, laying there all night long. I'm just like, I'm never gonna sleep. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah,
What's
I
wrong with
knew.
you people? But you've been to my house. Remember, we were kids. You'd been
Yeah,
over. And my parents had all those damn clocks. I was used
yeah,
to
I know.
bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
And there's like 8 of them going off.
yeah.
You're like, kill me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it now. That's for sure. It's those times have passed.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I like so right now. Like Harry's at the point where he can get out of bed by himself, and he'll come and get in bed with us, and like the TV will keep him up. So like I've turned the everything down to like as black as I can get it.
Oh,
So like there's not much brightness and
blacked it out.
flickering,
Yeah.
and then I like try to just read the subtitles and play it on like like volume 1 or 2, so you can like kind of pick out, but it's almost not good enough because like as soon as I close my eyes I really don't hear the sound, and then it's like wheels start turning again. And
Yeah. No, I get it. Like when I tried to go back to sleep this morning, everyone was snoring in my room. The
mm-hmm.
dogs and my wife. God love her. And so I decided to move on over to the next room where there's a comfortable bed. But my issue was the app I have on my phone that's for a fan. I used to use it religiously for when I traveled, and it got me through. Like traveling, I never slept well anyway, but I mean, you just do what you got to do. That app, it's a thing where between low and medium in the volume, you got to find the sweet spot of enough white noise to equal what I usually get, and then like and then in the room we're at where like there's boxes up because she's setting up a crafting area, and like you glance over and it's like what the f is that black thing over there, and then you realize what it is. And then I showed you the picture of my daughter in her ghostly
That's terrifying.
apparition setup, and walking into that will make a person about want to crap their pants. So
But yeah, I know.
so sleep was not forthcoming.
Kids don't even know how
They
terrifying they
don't
can
care.
be, honestly.
They don't care. They think it's hilarious to scare the crap out of you. And
I
if they get a
know.
real genuine scare, they love it.
I feel like speaking of, I have to check on my children real quick since we're here.
Yeah. Make sure all is well.
That's terrifying.
You know,
No, we're good.
when we cover our old songs when we redo our old songs, we should redo All Is Well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna rewrite some different lyrics to
You should.
that.
Yeah, you should.
I don't know if that's a funny story or not. I think it's a funny story.
You know what? That could be like a segment we do in the show. We're gonna pitch an idea here for you folks. That could be a segment for the show where we like when we get into the thick of that,
Mm-hmm.
we'd have like, all right, we're gonna talk 5 minutes about what we're doing with this, and
Yeah,
maybe laugh a little bit about some
Yeah,
of the
that's a good
lyrics
idea.
to
We'll break
different
like actually
things.
get the guitars off the wall and stuff.
Oh my gosh,
Jam out.
that was yeah, those were amazing times, man. When we read a book, and I'll stop after this because we got a show to do, but we read a book, one of the Ken Follett books,
Mm-hmm.
where one of the characters talks about like the old times and how good times never come back. I don't think that's the right way of putting it, because it's not that good times never come back. It's that it's not possible for those times and that exact set of circumstances and variables to ever recreate itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll never be back in our parents' house. We'll never not have kids. We'll never not have significant others, even though your significant other is still the same from that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, God, if I did it over again, some of the people we were associating with, I would not even come near if I knew as much as I know.
Same.
So, it's different. Like, I feel about it somewhat like that. Like, good times never come back, but it's just those times. And I treasure those moments because those were like defining, like, looking back, like, man, we, without even knowing it, and our kids are going to do the same thing, which is scary as hell to me. We set the courses of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and just I don't even think we all knew we were doing, even when
Yeah.
we thought we were playing adult.
Yeah, the guitar that's behind Brent in the far corner was the very first guitar I ever got. It's a classical guitar. It has the widest fret. I'm not a big guy, and I wasn't a big guy when I got that guitar. I was 8th grade, and
That thing was a
yeah,
big pain in the butt for me to play.
I know. I thought I would never play bar chords, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like if I could still love music after like that, it was meant to be.
Yeah,
And so I do keep that. I never play it. It needs some fixing up, but
oh man, you should see my LTD.
yeah.
It'd make you cry. It almost made me cry.
Uh,
She needs some work. She
yeah.
needs some TLC. She'll be moved upstairs eventually too. With
Get the humidifier and the dehumidifier.
and that's just it. I have dehumidification, but I feel like when it was at my parents' house for those years, it got neglected.
Yeah.
So she needs a clean.
Those cases aren't always conducive to that either, too.
Oh man, it's who knows what happened to that thing before I even had it. It's rough.
Right.
It's rough looking. So, shall we dive into our topic?
Yeah.
For this episode.
Yeah. Take us away, good sir.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna shove off here, and so we left off. We didn't leave off the discussion last time exactly at this point, but when we got into the church and state stuff, you specifically had gotten into the Everson versus the Board of Education, that case that was dealing with New Jersey law that had allowed the government to pay for transportation of students to both public and Catholic schools.
Sure.
So we got into that, and so we talked about there's so much more to this to unpack.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. And what I've tried to do.
Can we tell them how much it is to unpack? Each Supreme Court case that I got was at least 90 pages.
Yeah. I cheated.
Did you?
Yes.
How did you cheat?
So I found several source articles and things that I will gladly share with our listening audience.
Yeah, they'll be down below the video.
And came up with 3 solid pages of notes.
That's awesome.
And this is a skimming of the Brent likes this title of case.
Sure.
So there's more. And yeah, those actual case briefings are brutal. I mean, you're talking to a person who's actually willingly going to be a contract administrator, like working through legalese every day, and even I get into this stuff, and I'm like, bruh,
yeah,
I just cannot be. I couldn't be a constitutional lawyer.
It's pretty much all just citing precedents, which is the only thing I found
Precedent
nice.
on precedent on precedent.
Right. Some of them start to lend themselves to.
You can figure out what's going, where it's headed.
Yeah, because some of them quote the same darn cases, which is cool, but they don't quote the same part of the case.
Correct, and they can. It's almost. So, speaking of which, an appropriate segue would be with the SCOTUS nomination hearings going on today. So today is the 12th of October. So those started, and sort of like today, you get into where people get into the long history of the court. They start talking about how the court it's independent from political sway, and it doesn't fall in line. Even the Amy Coney Barrett, who was talking, she had a chance to talk today. She said that justices are held to a different standard. I'm paraphrasing.
Shouldn't be making policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I sent you a snippet from someone who was upset about, in my opinion, this ramrod process. And again, that's just my opinion, but this individual stated something to the effect of, if the Democrats suggested adding more seats to the court, it would just be to offset and, quote unquote, in their words, balance out the courts because of all the nominations that have been pushed through.
Every time the Republicans talk, dude, it's like that.
We put it through. You put it to the audience before when we were talking about Trump's legacy.
Yeah.
And it will be the judiciary. I mean, shoot, there's a lady on a federal bench now in Florida who's 33. She's my age. So if I was on the federal bench, I mean, granted, think about how lofty that'd be for someone. I don't feel old enough to be on the bench like that.
I'm going to get my butt through law school.
You have to. You need to be on the federal appeals court of something. God, dude, you could be on the Supreme Court.
Going for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that. Look for it.
Yeah.
Get your autographs now.
Me and Chelsea are having a race to Harvard. Because, and it's funny, because we both, like, I'm definitely want to apply for law school there. And no hopes of getting it. But I want to say I did it. And then Chelsea was looking to do, I don't remember, some kind of testing or something. But before, it's online teaching. But it's for a university where you have to have a certification in online education.
Okay.
Something. And so she found that Harvard does a class.
Of course they do.
Yeah. So she's like, I'm going to make it to Harvard before you. I'm like, That's not fair. It's not fair at all.
Talk about your spouse like sneaking in behind your guard,
Oh,
just
dude,
sticking
no.
the knife in.
The next day, she sends me screenshots because she's getting calls from Boston, and it's Harvard calling to try to recruit her to come to these online certification classes. And, man, trouble in the household.
Yeah, right. All right, we're going to segue back before this explodes into something else. So we've been talking about the Everson versus Board of Education, and I'm not going to dig back into that one because you did a good job, not a pretty good job. You did a good job of unpacking that.
I'll take it.
The cliff notes are important here, so please bear with me. So taking a step forward, so Everson versus the Board of Education, that was back in 1947. So you go forward, a little more than a decade and a half. You get to 1962. Where the Supreme Court is now going to be addressing the issue of officially sponsored prayer or religious recitations. Recitations. God, I'm terrible tonight. Forgive me, folks.
Oh yeah.
In public schools, and so the case I'm referencing is Engel versus Vitale. That's probably bad. I'm probably wrong.
I got a lot of those going too, buddy.
Yeah, so basically they determined at that point in their decision that it was unconstitutional for state officials to compose an official school prayer and require its recitation in public schools, even when the prayer is non-denominational and students may excuse themselves from participation.
Huh.
Yeah. You're going to see, because that, if you think about it, it makes sense, but it doesn't quite jive with maybe some of the things you've experienced.
Right.
And that we're going to get into further in these other cases. You will see that it's sort of like in our first discussion on this. I'm sorry, I keep hitting the table, folks.
And I keep hitting my cup.
I know. That chime is like a signal, isn't it? Move on.
Well, and last week we put so much effort into like framing a new shot, giving you something new to look at, and then I find out that, and then we moved the mic halfway through, and then we had a camera fault. Well, then we find out that this mic wasn't even picking up the audio last week. It was all that. It was just.
So, anyways, we're not going to do that anymore.
No. We need a producer.
Yeah, and probably some different equipment. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, that's next.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brent.
No, it's all good. So I mean, so you have this situation where they're saying, okay, school officials can't, set up a school prayer, an official school prayer for recitation in the school setting, even if it's not like calling out a specific religion or it's required. Sort of like when we were kids. The Pledge of Allegiance, I don't think was required, but pretty much everybody did it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, like you don't have.
You're indoctrinated, man.
It's
part of the rigmarole.
Moral principles.
We didn't think anything of it.
No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. I bet you could say it right now without even questioning it.
Well, of course I could, but
I remember you were indoctrinated. The dogma lives strong in you, Chris.
Early 2000 songs too. I don't know what that means.
Oh man, it means a lot, Chris. It does. So, okay, where am I at here? So the back to the case. Basically, the prayer was struck down because it was a violation of the Establishment Clause. Because that prayer was composed by government officials as part of a governmental program, and by what they're trying to do, just having it being recited to further religious beliefs. And so basically, they're saying that system breaches the constitutional quote-unquote wall of separation between church and state. Now, granted, we talked about last time how that wall is more of like a gray no man's land of a battlefield.
Correct. Yeah, you set me up so good for that last week, and I missed it.
It's hard, man. There's a lot to this. When you get into the thick of it too.
Yeah.
You start to think to yourself, okay, separation of church and state, it's not the Berlin Wall. It's more like this, what do we want to make of it?
Yeah, there's a conflict built in the free exercise clause.
Oh, yeah,
and
because we have a right to religious freedom, but we don't have the right to recite that freedom as part of a sanctioned event, as part of a government-sponsored activity.
Right.
By what we just said in 1962.
Right. So so there is a rule where we say there isn't going to be a special rule, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So basically the court at that time was saying that it's no part of the business of the government to compose official prayers for any group of the American people to recite as part of a religious program carried out by the government. So, shifting pages here.
Shifty.
Uh,
Nice front back, man. That's nice.
I'm trying to conserve paper. This will be recycled at some point, probably too. The court at that time noted it's a matter of history that this very practice of establishing governmentally composed prayers for religious services was one of the reasons which caused many of our early colonists to leave England and seek religious freedom in America.
Hey, have you said that prayer they came up with?
Yeah, right.
No, it's bloody terrible. I'm leaving.
Shove off.
Shut up.
That's just it, man. So that's a great point, though.
Yeah.
Because, the pilgrims left and they came here for mainly religious freedom. That's to go against that and force someone to recite a prayer is like just right in the face, flying in the face of that.
Sure.
So we move forward. 6 years. Epperson versus Arkansas. At this point, the court is now going to consider an Arkansas law that made it a crime to teach the theory or doctrine that mankind ascended or descended from a lower order of animals, or, to adopt or use any such institution, a textbook that teaches this theory for any school or university that has received public funds. So basically, they're saying you can't teach evolution if you get money from us. So they made that a law in Arkansas. The court then said they ruled that the Arkansas law was violating the Constitution, the constitutional prohibition of state laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And they were saying that the overriding fact is that Arkansas's law at that time selects from the body of knowledge of a particular segment which it prescribes as the sole reason that is deemed to conflict with a particular religious doctrine. So they're saying evolution conflicts with Christianity's theory of the beginning of humanity, and therefore it's illegal. And so they're saying that with that particular interpretation, the book of Genesis is that doctrine.
Yeah.
So the court held that, again, the Establishment Clause prohibits the state from advancing any religion, and that the state has no legitimate interest in protecting any or all religions from views distasteful to them. Mm-hmm. So they could have picked anything. It didn't have to be the book of Genesis, like they're saying, the traditional Christian view of origin.
Yeah.
It could have been anybody's. You know what I mean? It could be the Islam, Hindu, any of them. I think that gets to the heart of what the court's all about, applying the law uniformly.
Correct.
It's supposed to apply fairly to all of us, regardless of what you are, who you are.
Oh man, that's scary. There was and when is this?
1968.
Oh man.
Yeah.
What were they thinking? I don't even know.
You're talking Arkansas. This is the South back. I mean, very conservative. Not that Arkansas is not conservative now, but I mean, I think that you're getting into the Jim, forgive me, but Jim Crow South, where there was a lot of people who did not want to see anything buck the system. So now we're going to get into some interesting stuff here. At least I think so. So in 1971, there was Lemon versus Kurtzman. And at this point, the court was looking at the Pennsylvania state policy of reimbursing the salaries and related costs of teachers of secular subjects in a private religious school. And they were saying that violated the Establishment Clause.
Sure.
So the court's decision basically said that separation of church and state is never absolute. So now we're getting into the gray area again. So in prior holdings, it wasn't that we've been talking about so far. They never just flat out said, they never talked about a total separation between church and state. And the court at this time in 71 was saying it's not possible in the absolute sense, which that sort of makes sense. But if you're not going to apply it a hard and fast rule, then I think in 71 you hit a pivotal turning point where this gets blown up.
Yeah.
And so basically they're saying that judicial caveats against entanglement must recognize that the line of separation far from being a quote-unquote wall, is blurred. It's a gray area, just like we've been saying. Indistinct and variable barrier depending upon all the circumstances of a particular relationship.
Hey,
so the court,
what's that gray thing going down the middle?
Yeah, man, it's not the Berlin Wall. It's just like this void where you're like, well, we can jump across that sucker right and left. And the court even said in this opinion that, and it's a variable barrier depending on all of the circumstances of a particular relationship. So it is subject to the terms of a particular instance, making up the rules as we go along, which is the law.
Yeah.
But isn't that crazy?
Do you know who Chief Justice was on that?
Oh, I don't know. It's not in here.
I understand.
Probably was Rehnquist. That guy was around forever.
That's interesting.
I don't know. So basically, since this point in 71, the Supreme Court has applied a three-pronged test to determine whether the government action violates the Establishment Clause. And this is called the Lemon Test.
Ooh.
Yeah. Not lemon law, but lemon test. So first, the first piece of this test is the law or policy must have been adopted with a neutral or non-religious purpose.
Okay.
Second, the principal or primary effect must be one that neither advances nor inhibits religion. And third, the statute or policy must not result in an excessive entanglement of government with religion.
So it can't do any of those.
Correct. Failure to meet any of these criteria is proof that the statute or policy in question violates the Establishment Clause.
Wow.
So at least they defined some rules behind their subject to the particular circumstances of the situation.
Gosh, what do you think the person did that made Lemon so mad?
Who knows?
I know.
So we're going to fast forward a lot here. That was back in 71. 2002. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals basically held that in a decision that a classroom recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance in a California public school was unconstitutional, even when students were not compelled to recite it due to the inclusion of the phrase "under God." So they could say, "I don't want to do it because it's got the phrase "under God" in it."
That one doesn't make sense to me.
So the Ninth Circuit said that's unconstitutional because even though they don't have to say it, even though it has "under God" in it, we're going to say it's unconstitutional. It violates the Establishment Clause. So they said that. So Elk Grove Unified School District versus Newdow, which that's what made its way up to the Supreme Court, basically was overturned in June of 2004. And it was only overturned on a procedural ground because the parent that actually sued on behalf of his daughter didn't have custody of her. And so he didn't have legal standing to sue that the Pledge of Allegiance was unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's the part that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I get it.
So he basically, if he would have been the legal guardian of the person, it would have been, they couldn't have ruled it that way.
And the problem
they
is,
have it out.
It's like the third one, right? It's the intermingling.
Correct, the entanglement.
Entanglement, excuse me.
Yep, excessive entanglement. And that's just it. I think that you'll see in not just the Supreme Court, but in a lot of judicial proceedings, they are able to pull the ripcord and, get out of situations where they seemingly are backed into the corner, because it's sort of like back in medieval times where it was just because we're the church, you guys, whatever I say is God's will.
Right.
It's the church, it's the court's will.
Right.
I mean, they are literally making rules in law.
Policy.
Yeah, as we go. They're making policy, even indirectly.
Right.
Whether or not they want to admit that. And I think that's the issue to run into, where they pull the ripcord and stuff like this. So this could have been retried. Sorry. And so, continuing on that train of thought before I lose my issue here. Louisiana, basically, their state legislature passed a law requiring the public school biology teachers they needed to give creationism and evolution equal time in the classroom. And the Supreme Court ruled that law was unconstitutional because it was intended to advance a particular religion and did not serve the secular purpose of improving scientific education. The key words there is that law giving equal time to creationism and evolution was unconstitutional, again, because it was intended to advance a particular religion.
Yeah, right.
If it would have been for all religions, like every single one of them, they could have done it.
Okay,
but you imagine that? They'd have to pick out however many, like the main religions, never. That would never happen. Especially, Louisiana. They're going to teach Hindu. No way. I'm going to try to keep this moving along.
You might be surprised. I might have a huge Hindu. Sorry.
Could
I'd
be.
say as I derail you.
Could be. I think there's a massive Middle Eastern population up in Minnesota.
Yeah, I remember reading about that too. Or there was a documentary I watched on that.
So, I mean, like you said, there's people from all over in different states. 2005, there was a display of the Ten Commandments in a courthouse.
I remember this one.
And it was basically a part of a group of cases. So the first one is McCreary County versus the ACLU of Kentucky.
What a perfect name for a town or for a county.
Yeah, right.
Kentucky.
Yeah, right. And then Van Orden versus Perry. These two cases, they they basically pushed for clarification of the Lemon test, and they were both very narrow decisions. But essentially, what came out of all that was that, especially with and actually a different case that, okay, let me explain something. When these cases make it to the Supreme Court, if there's different plaintiffs on the same side, they roll these cases up into like broader, more wider scope cases. This will happen in what I'm going to talk about later in the Hobby Lobby Stores Inc. case in 2014. That's the end of this discussion for my part. But when they roll this thing up, I'm going to like list like the ACL versus Mercer County. That was another decision that was later on, but it's related to the other ones from McCreary County in that these plaintiffs keep getting rolled in together when they're going against another side of opposing defendants that are of like interest.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you could sue the state of Illinois, but I could also sue them for a different thing that's related. And then when it gets to the Supreme Court, it could be state of Illinois versus Tapp and Miller, or something like that.
Buddy.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, totally. So I say all that basically to say that they ruled in 2005, the end of 2005, back in December, that the Ten Commandments on display in Mercer County and other counties that are part of a larger display on American legal traditions in a Kentucky courthouse, that is allowed because it's part of a larger display. It's not championing one religion. Again, because the purpose of the display is educating the public on American legal traditions. It's secular in nature. Yeah, sure. I know. That, yep. Talk about tiptoeing the line there. But contrary to that, May of 06, a federal judge ruled that a cross on public property in Mount Solon must be removed. So, and again, you're going to hear another cross later on here. I'm not trying to jump around too much here, but there's some interesting stuff to, where is it? And then remember we talked about earlier how they couldn't have a prayer in school for kids to recite. 2014, U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in favor of the town of Greece, which was the town of Greece versus Galloway. This is the court case. They held that the U.S. Constitution not only allows for prayer at government meetings, but also for sectarian prayers and like predominantly Christian prayers. So you can champion a particular religion at government meetings, but not in forcing students to participate in an officially sanctioned school prayer.
Well, there's a difference.
There is, absolutely. But they're similar.
Yes and no.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, a school prayer means everyone's going to say the same thing.
Yep.
If you just have somebody stand up and do a prayer at a meeting, it's not like everyone knows the words.
That's correct. They don't know the words.
So, like, I get up and be like, dear Lord, whatever, and then it ends up the Lord I'm talking to is like the flying spaghetti monster.
Yep. The law or policy must have been adopted with a neutral and non-religious purpose. Principle must primary effect be one that neither advances nor inhibits religion.
Yep.
The statute of policy must not result in excessive entanglement of government with religion. I think the last one's the one that it doesn't pass, or it does pass for sure. The middle one probably doesn't. It probably doesn't conflict with the Lemon test. But the first one, law must not have been adopted with a neutral. Must have been adopted with a neutral or non-religious purpose. It's not a law to um, say prayer at a town meeting, but it's not that far. It's not that far from the school from the students reciting prayers, because you could be a student and you could be like in a religious club, and we're going to kick this meeting off on school property, a sanctioned school club event with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, the school's not making you do that. You as an individual, that's why they upheld it that way, 5-4, because you as the individual are not citing a predetermined prayer,
Yeah.
and also it's not sanctioned by the school. It's just happening on school property at a school sanctioned event.
Reach in the cabinet and pull out a holy book.
Yeah, right.
It's a Bible again.
Oh shit! It actually. Yeah, right. I hear you, man. Okay, so 2019. We're back at the cross stuff, man. I know. 7-2 decision.
Name of this episode.
They determined the government maintained peace cross in Bladensburg, Maryland, had stood for decades without controversy and thus did not violate the Establishment Clause and could remain standing. So it's been there long enough.
We talked about that last.
If it's been there long enough,
it's established. So we can't use the Establishment
Man,
Clause.
we'll piss them off. We take it down now.
Uh-huh.
KKK would have lit up a fire on that sucker if you let them.
I know.
What do they think about that?
That's crazy.
I know. All right. My piece de resistance.
I'm excited for this one.
Burwell versus Hobby Lobby Stores Inc.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. So Hobby Lobby, this is one that got rolled up. So Hobby Lobby is it's a for-profit corporation. There's the founders, a self-made billionaire. I didn't write down the guy's name. That's not really important. And basically, it's a family. I would call it a trust, for lack of a way. I didn't get a descriptor on what it's actually, whether the family's incorporated or what. But it's kind of like the Waltons with Walmart. Their family owns the majority, but the employees of Hobby Lobby also own shares in the company.
Mm.
So it's a
company owned.
It's defined as a closely held for-profit corporation.
Closely held.
Yeah, and that is very key. Closely held are key words. It has to do with the fact that the ownership is majority held by a single or small group of entities. It's not Wall Street publicly traded with tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of shareholders. I think there's a lot of employees, but I don't know how much they actually own of the company. That could come later if anybody cares. But basically, in 2014, what happened was the U.S. Health and Human Services, under the Affordable Care Act, required that employers cover certain contraceptives for their female employees. And so the Affordable Care Act, it gave HHS the authority to define what contraceptives were going to be required to be offered as part of the act. And HHS determined that all approved FDA contraceptives should be covered. And I think there's like 10 of them or more. I can't remember, 20. Forgive me. The number is not really important, but there's a lot. There's a lot that they're saying that has to be provided. And so Hobby Lobby and others, one of the other companies that brought up the case was like the Hobby Lobby founder's son created like a religious supply store, and they also sued. So it's like they got brought up under the Hobby Lobby name as one of the plaintiffs. But Hobby Lobby and others specifically objected to, one, the emergency contraceptive pills in their various forms, and two, IUD devices. Which I find interesting because by the definition of what I read online, that these people, and I mean I say that not unkindly, that these folks objected to, these people that they objected to, I would have felt like they would object to all things, because there was something about, like, they defined the they defined contraception as when the sperm fertilized the egg, right? And like they got into a very scientific explanation of like the specific moment that event takes place. That's when it's a person.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Not yet. Now it's life.
Yeah, right. But in legal terms, you
I
gotta
get
define those parameters.
I totally get it.
So
And I'm not mocking it. I'm so sorry.
No, and so they said that's the moment that it's a human, a person with a soul, and so from all that they said, well, we specifically don't agree with the emergency contraceptive and the IUD. Okay, whatever. So all the other ones apparently are okay, and they're out of the scope of this. So the Supreme Court, because the case got brought up to them, they ruled that closely held for-profit corporations are exempt from a regulation its owners religiously object to if there is a less restrictive means of furthering the law's intent, according to the provisions of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, Schumer's act that you talked about.
I know, Schumer did not see that.
He did not intend that one. So basically, they directly struck down the contraceptive mandate that was adopted by HHS under the Affordable Care Act that was requiring those employers cover the contraceptives that HHS determined. The court said that the mandate was not the least restrictive way to ensure access to the contraceptive care, noting that a less restrictive alternative was being provided for religious nonprofits. It was an exemption, basically. Like, if you're a religious nonprofit, you're exempt from this policy. You don't have to provide. It was one of the reasons, or one of the ways companies, so Affordable Care Act, they didn't have to provide these things for like companies less than 50 people and some other things. That was one of them. Like, churches don't have to do this. And so they said that existed, so you have to use that. We're striking down HHS's mandate. But what's funny about it is the court actually issued an injunction 3 days after they made this decision that said that program, that exemption program, is actually going to end too, because it has to be a government-sponsored alternative.
Meaning they can't be policymakers?
Correct. Right? Yeah. Right? So talk about not making big government. The damn Supreme Court is saying they got to have a government-sponsored alternative to the contraceptives to be provided because they can't force the private employers to provide it. Tell me that's not furthering the Affordable Care Act.
Correct.
I rest my case.
That's good, man.
Thank you.
That was good. All right.
Let's have it.
Taxes.
Oh,
taxes.
Let's do this. I'm energized.
Only 2 things in life are certain: death and taxes. So what spurred this episode is Illinois is getting ready to vote if we want to move from a fair tax from a flat tax to a fair tax. And there's lots of really different cool ways you could say it, like surtax is a tax on top of an additional tax. So I thought we ought to start there. Illinois' income tax right now is 4.95%. So we know. So, okay, Brent, we hear a lot about taxes, and we talk about marginal income taxes, which would be different tax brackets.
Right, tax brackets. Heard about that?
Okay, let's say there are 3 tax brackets, and we'll make it simple math. 10%, and 30%, and 50%.
Okay.
Let's say it's 50% over $300.
Okay.
Take a guess at what you think that means. How much do you think you're taking home if you're paying 50% on the 300?
So if I'm paying 50% of my 300, 150.
That's what people assume, and I understand why.
It's half of my money I earned.
That's half your money. Well, that's because people look at it in brackets, but today we're going to look at them as cups.
Oh, wow. Cool. Can I be Vanna?
Yeah, you can, please. So the red straws are what you actually take home, and the blue straw represents the tax.
Yep.
So our first tax bracket is 10%, anything under $100. Cups falling. Our next tax bracket is 30%, anything from $101 to $200. And our last tax bracket, or tax cup, is a 50% tax on anything over $200, $200 to $300. Ideally, there'd be more, but I didn't have enough straws to go any further.
Nor enough arms.
So this is
You
what
need
we
one
have.
arm to describe what's going on.
Yeah, I know, I do. Okay, so Brent, as you can see, the first year at your company, you made $100.
Okay.
And that meant you were in the first tax bracket.
Okay.
Great news. So you only had to lose one straw.
Okay.
And you got to keep 90. You can keep those out if you want.
Okay. So I paid this.
Yes.
And I get to keep all this.
Correct.
Cool.
So the next year at your company,
Yep.
you got a $100 raise.
Oh man, now I'm making $200.
$200.
Damn.
You're in the next tax bracket.
100% raise.
I know, it's a good company.
Damn.
And you're doing a 30% tax on that. Now,
Yep.
that doesn't mean you're doing 30% of 200. That means you still have to fill up your first cup.
So my first cup here that I've made my first $100 that I made, then I still have to pay $10.
Yeah, you're 10%.
Yep.
So now that cup has been filled, the tax has been taken off. You're now in this next cup.
Yep.
So now it's 30% of $100.
So the next 100 I've earned over the first 100, I paid taxes on this. This next 100,
yes,
I have to pay $30 on it.
$30. There should be 3 straws. I don't know why there's 4.
Just 3.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
So you still have
all this money, man.
I know you still have 9 and 7, right? So
Yep.
it's 16.
Yeah.
No,
So I haven't lost a flat 40%. It was on equal shares of my earnings.
Yes.
Okay, I follow.
Okay, so again, it's not the 30% of the 200. So the next year at your company, I'll put this back in here.
Yep.
The next year at your company, you got another $100 raise. You're the best employee ever. Woo!
Jeez.
So now you're in the next tax bracket, and
Okay.
you're like, hey, what do you mean? I'm making.
So I make $300 now total.
I make $300 total, and now I have to pay 50% on that. That's only $150. That's not good.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that because we have our cups. So
off my first $100, I got to pay 10.
10.
Okay, 10% of my earnings.
You're in your next cup now.
So
Brent.
now I'm in the next cup, and I'm going to lose $30 of that additional $100.
Correct. And now you're a baller.
So I've made 100. I've made, let's see, what is that? 160 total.
160.
Okay, so I've made $160 out of my 200.
And you thought you were going to get only $150
out of 300.
Out of 300.
So my
now
next
this
100.
is a higher tax bracket, so
Yep.
you lose half of them.
So I had 160, but on this last $100, I lose half of it.
Yeah.
So I only have 210.
Correct.
Wow. So I gotta. Wow. So each subsequent bracket is what's causing me to lose my additional earnings.
Correct.
Bucket.
But it's still better to have, what do we say this was, 210?
Yeah, 210 total.
It's still better to have 210 than 150.
Yeah, totally. I get it.
You know, so and that's why I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Join us for another video where I show you how to make more tax crafts. And I'm only going to make tax crafts. The market's cornered in crafts, so I thought, you know what I need?
Chris Tapp, tax crafts.
I love
That's hilarious. CTTC.
Yes.
CTTC Incorporated.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah, man. Those auditors out there.
So Illinois, again, is having this problem, and where we have to vote to change our constitution.
Yeah, if you want to change it.
So before we talk about that a little bit more, I was going to dive in to taxes.
Let's have it.
You ready?
Yep.
Take you back in time, Brent.
Hello.
The year 1764. We find Britain in deep debt following its victory over France in the French Indian War, and as a result, it enacts the Sugar Act, and the following year came the Stamp Act, and then the Townshend Act of 1767. All of these were measures aimed at raising money from the 13 American colonies.
Well, they defended our land, right?
Where they fought the war.
Spent all that money.
Spent all the money.
George is like, I need to get some of that back.
Right. So now the rates were significantly lower here in America than the counterparts back home in England.
So if you were in Britain as a loyal British subject, you're going to pay more taxes than me if I was an American colonist.
Correct. But that still didn't sit well with the Americans because they had no representation over there.
At all.
At all. So they take up the famous cry, no taxation without representation.
Right.
That's probably how they sounded. That's what I think our founding fathers sounded like.
Hopefully not. It's zombies.
So our main focus today is going to be on income tax. I'll kind of wrap in some other things, but that's where we're starting. The first federal income tax came during the Civil War. We were broke. It was late 1861. Lincoln signed a bill imposing the first income tax, but it had no enforcement mechanism, so nobody paid.
Yeah. That's the best kind of tax.
I know.
Nobody can do anything about it.
Nobody do anything. All right, so next year, 1862, a second bill was passed, and that was a progressive tax or graduated tax, fair tax. All of those words mean the same thing. And the tax rates were 0% under $600. I guess say $599 because it was 3% for $600 to $10,000.
Okay, that bucket. Gotcha.
Yeah, and at 5% anything over the 10,000.
So 10,001 up.
Yeah, and the average income at that time was only $300. So
cha-ching!
yeah,
we're all good.
Most people weren't paying anything. And now Congress allowed that tax to expire in 10 years. It was just to help
pay for the
war, recoup, all that good stuff. So in 1894, they approved a new tax bill only to have it struck down a year later by the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme, basically, it was called the 1894 Tariff Act, and Congress could levy a tax apportioned among the states by the census, meaning taxes would be paid not at a same rate, but at a rate based on the amount of people they had, or would get money based on the amount of people they had too.
Okay.
But that didn't go well, and it got struck down.
Sounds familiar.
Right, yeah. So, in 1909, Congress was like, we know what to do. Let's change the Constitution.
That's easy.
Yeah. So they had the 16th Amendment, and that allowed Congress to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever sources derived as, and they did that as a means to overturn the court's previous 5-4 ruling. Should have looked up that case. Didn't think about it.
That's all right.
Now, that was ratified by 3/4 of the states, and it took effect February 1913.
Wow.
So Woodrow Wilson signed another income tax a few months later, and the U.S. has had an income tax ever since.
Well, we got to pay for our battleships and military-industrial complex.
Correct. And for decades leading up to that point, there were populist movements at the time, and people wanted to redistribute the wealth because there was a growing concentration of wealth and power at the top, and again, our country was amidst a growing industrial state, and the people at the top were making lots and lots of money, and other people weren't. Mm-hmm. So there was a push to remind Americans of their fiscal citizenship.
Okay.
I love that. And our shared duties to one another.
Yeah, right. Sounds very... If you're around wartime footing, then I can see that going over well. Otherwise, it's going to be like, well, for who?
Yeah, well, and okay, then comes the Great War, or World War I, and this ingrained the tax changes into America. Journalist Frederick Lewis Allen wrote, at the beginning of the war, he wrote, a new sense of obligation of citizenship will transform the spirit of this nation. Because they literally looked at it as, we need the money. Like, we're doing important things, we're helping out. I'm probably doing a terrible job paraphrasing that. But...
No, you're not wrong, because that was a pivotal point. The Industrial Revolution had been going for a while, but technology was advancing rapidly, and you were getting into different things. I mean, around so before World War II or World War One, that's when they were first starting to get into mechanized warfare with like the first tanks and like vehicles, like not horse-drawn, and so like. They had a whole petroleum and like energy industry and automotive industries that were like coming to Lexington, Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge. Like that was when all those were kicking off. And I mean, you can see where before all that, when you're in your horse and buggy, you don't give that much of a crap about how good the road is. But who's going to pay for the roads? Right. And so I could see where all that becomes ingrained.
Yeah. So this Frederick Lewis Allen, he believed that this tax was a way to create a new standard for civic obligation and to make the country feel that everybody paid their share. And again,
I could see the potential.
yeah. And again, Lincoln, when we started it, had a progressive tax. Just reminding that.
Yeah.
So taxes, pay, and pay they would. In April 1917, federal taxes accounted for 10% of the annual revenue, and about 2% of Americans paid. And I looked up that number, and I was like, why did they say in April? And I was like, 1917. So, like, I can't say it because my phone's right there. Okay, Google. I'm like, what happened, in March 1917? And it was the Zimmerman Note.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Zimmerman Note, they
Western Union, they intercepted the note from the German Chancellor to the Mexican government.
Let's form an alliance
and attack America and distract them.
Southern border.
Yep. And we'll subsidize, and you can win back Texas and Arizona.
Literally, we at that point, America was making weapons and stuff for both sides.
Oh yeah, we were totally playing both sides. We did it in World War II also.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know it's true.
More the Allies than the Axis, but
correct.
People were pandering to Hitler too.
Yeah, I mean even
freaking Joseph Kennedy was up Hitler's ass, man.
Right. Yeah, Churchill got fooled.
Hell yeah, he did. So did Stalin.
So
battled with Hitler for a while.
Yeah, Zimmerman Note, March 17th, and that ended the whole tax not being a big deal thing. So by the end of the war, federal taxes on incomes, profits, and inheritance accounted for 80% of the government revenue.
Jeez.
And affected about 20% of Americans.
Wow.
Still a huge jump.
Taking a bigger slice.
Yeah, huge jump from 2%. Now we're up to 20% of Americans paying.
Yeah.
So with the war came a national inheritance tax and a new top marginal tax rate, as well as some other taxes like an excess profit tax, which was used to combat war profiteering and stuff like that.
Oh.
Yeah, the times,
Man, that's a tough one to define. Like, talk about getting slammed with that, and you're like, what are you talking about?
Sorry. The top marginal rate was 7%, jumped up to 77%.
Dang. But we're talking buckets. Not your total income.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So that's why.
So sorry, Jeff Bezos. When we get up to that top trillion, we're going to take 77%.
Right. Now, after World War I, the conservatives were able to bring the taxes down. So we were at 77. It dropped to 58% in 1922, 46% in 1924, and 25% in 1925, and 31.
Wow.
So they
cut it down big time.
Now, in the 20s, there was a lot going on from instability after World War I, and there was also,
the Roaring 20s,
again, an uneven distribution of wealth from all the war contracts. I mean, there's a lot of reasons people got rich during World War I. And so it all culminates on October 29th, 1929,
yep.
Black Friday.
Things explode.
Yeah. And so in 1932, we elect Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And
by Hoover.
Huh?
By Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, by Hoover. And I was reading a stupid study from the Cato Institute that attacked Roosevelt's
FDR.
His idea on taxes, and said look at, I think his name was Milton, the Treasury Secretary during the 20s. So look at him. That's who we should look at. Everything was going good until the stock market crashed. That's just such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, right. He was doing good until he fell on his face.
Yeah, I know.
It's like saying Usain Bolt was about to make the record, and then he just fell flat on his face.
So, FDR had this idea that increasing tax paid by individuals in the higher tax bracket, those over 500,000, was the American thing to do. And he also said that that increasing still further taxes on the highest tax brackets with income over $1 million was even the more American thing to do.
I love the voice you do. Increasing taxes on over $1 million. That's what I'm saying, but over $1 million, that's the one to go after.
That's what it sounded like, you see?
Sure.
So in 1932, we get a rate hike again from 25% to 63%.
Wow.
Yeah. And now...
Talk about
Correct. Oh, we're not done. And
it's
we're not done.
How do you know what you're going to pay every year?
Yeah, we're not done going up and down. So,
we're rich, we're poor.
oh, also interesting. Getting into World War II, 1940, some income tax paid was still around 7% by that time because margins changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
And by 1944, then it was up to 64%.
Jeez.
So big jumps on who's paying. So World War II, we went to the old ways of renewing fiscal citizenship. And during and leading up to World War II, the top tax bracket had between a 79% up to a 94% tax rate.
Damn.
And that was the 94 was from 44 to 45.
Bet you those rich suckers they were digging for loopholes everywhere they could find them.
Yeah, I mean, that's
To lower my taxable income at all costs.
So, okay, this was the 94%. This was on incomes over $200,000. To put that in today's terms, that would be $2.4 million.
So if you're making at the 2,400,000, you know where I'm going.
Yep.
$1. That's when you pay the 94%.
Yep.
On those dollars.
And again, there are.
So you're paying of that first dollar over the 2.4 million. That $1.
Yeah.
You're paying 94 cents of it.
And I really encourage people to go back
crazy,
and look at the old tax brackets because they do a really great job. When you see like how the tax brackets have a flat rate and it's the same number all the way down, well then there's a surtax. So then you see how much they're adding for each margin, and then on the third column you see what that combined tax rate is. But it all starts off with the base because you need that to figure out the other numbers.
Right.
Okay, I think it's the end of that page. 2.4 million today. And until the early 60s, the taxes stayed above 90%.
Wow.
It was up there.
So all the 50s.
Yeah. Which, isn't that the time people like...
Things were going nuts.
People talk about how great things were.
Hell yeah.
I mean, like...
Yeah.
I think we're leaving some things out. So... Now, there's some things that are going on, though. In the 60s, we get Vietnam, Lyndon B. Johnson, and we have Nixon.
Yep. Nixon.
Here's a little fun bit about Nixon.
Yeah, lots of those.
1970, Nixon paid $793 in income tax, and he was in the top bracket. And also, 71, he paid $879. I was like, am I reading this story about Trump when I read these numbers?
Yeah, right.
So one of the things he got in trouble for was some dubious deductions, if you will.
Hair care?
He claimed $576,000 deduction for donating vice presidential papers to the National Archives. And what made it worse was an aide had gone back and post-dated them to actually make it the cutoff date fit right. So he never went to jail, but he had to pay over $400,000 in back taxes.
Jeez.
And
so you settled with the IRS.
And that's where we get the whole "I am not a crook" referring
tricky dick
to taxes.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know, I didn't know. So.
Not to mention all the other finagling he was doing.
Yeah. Right.
Man.
So it was 90%. Johnson drops down to 70%, and it remains above 50% until Reagan. And by the end of Reagan, it's down to 28%.
Reaganomics.
Yeah, and it was
2 sets of books
in hopes of limiting government to protect private industry. Oh, private industry.
Yeah, right.
So George H.W. We're moving along, people. We're moving along. George H.W. kicks it up to 31%. Clinton kicks it up to 39.6%. George W. comes in, lowers it to 35%, and currently we're at 39.6%.
Mm-hmm.
And that is on anything over $400,000. And if you're married, it's $450,000. Which I think it's just, I don't even mean this mean. It seems sexist. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's like, if you make $400,000, good. If you make $450,000, no.
At 50 for the little wife, the little husband,
doesn't
working the teaching job.
I know, maybe that's me. I don't mean, I just think the number should be kind of high.
There are different thresholds no matter where you're at for filing separately or as a single versus a jointly. You can file married filing separately too.
Really?
Yeah, you do that if you don't trust your spouse. Yeah, right. Why would you even file together at all then? Like,
When-
I'm out of this bitch.
When the U.S. Income tax started, the tax code was only 11,400 words. And to give you some perspective on that, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy is 600,000 words. And all of Shakespeare's works combined, 900,000 words.
Wow.
I know you can see, but guess what a modern tax code is?
I didn't read that far down in your
Oh,
notes.
okay, good.
Well, I don't know. Million?
3.8 million.
Jeez, 3.8 million words.
The average American
So it's
spends
3 Shakespeare's works plus a little bit of
almost
War
4.
and Peace.
It's pretty much 4 Shakespeare's.
4 Shakespeare's.
Yeah. I mean, the average American spends 27 hours preparing returns.
Yeah, my time's more spent gathering the stuff that
I think that
need.
counts.
Yeah.
I wonder if it counts for me, like logging in for not remembering the password. I'm counting it.
Yeah, when I go on
I'm counting it.
my tax application to actually do the work, I'd say a couple hours.
Yeah, I know. Same.
But, yeah, it sucks.
Now, Illinois' tax
Mhm.
is the argument against
So
flat
we're
tax
leaving the Fed behind. We're going to go to the Illinois State tax plan.
briefly, and then
Yeah.
we're going to wrap it up. It's pretty
Okay.
quick after this. Flat tax, again, everybody gets taxed the same.
Yep.
Fair.
4 point whatever.
Yeah, 4.9, I think.
Yep.
So, I was going to write down more information about the flat tax, but I have to be honest with you, it seems mainly based in fear-mongering. What they're saying is that if we move away from a flat tax to a fair tax, that
A graduated tax.
yes, that it'll put all these small businesses out of work, or all these small businesses in trouble, and it'll tax farmers and stuff like that. I mean, the farmers one is the only one I haven't really looked into, but they're saying that the farmers are making incomes over this amount of money, and same for small businesses. Small businesses don't pay income tax; the owners pay.
Depending on what kind of legal entity they are, but yeah.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So, I personally am leaning towards fair tax, and again, I just can't find substance. There's claims that it's going to allow them to tax retirement incomes. Well, the truth is they could do that now, but the voter or voter support for that is 23%.
Right.
That's political suicide.
Mhm.
And again, democracy doesn't fail you. You fail democracy. You gotta hold your people accountable. But
Correct.
as of right now, it
Not even a proposal.
yeah. And if you get on the Fair Tax website, the first thing it says will not tax retirement incomes. Right. I'll put the links below. You can read it. AARP has endorsed it. And now the way they describe it, it says it gives legislature the ability to raise taxes only at the top, because right now they can't do that.
So I disagree with that statement a little bit in the sense that it's not just at the top. Like, they can make the brackets whatever they want.
Correct.
But it allows them to make the brackets instead of it be a flat rate.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
What's the opposite of fear-mongering? Calm stoking.
They'll be like, well, if you're not gonna like stoking it, then you're like leaving people alone. So sitting in silence.
We'll get back to you.
Anyways,
we'll get back to you on this one.
The antithesis to fear mongering.
And that was the other thing. They're saying it's not a job tax, which oddly enough, there's not a thing called a jobs tax. It's very much a word made up to fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Making up something at all costs.
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. You can't see what I'm looking at. But that's that thing we talked about on our Forgotten Technology show.
Oh, yeah, terracing.
Yeah, yes. Good, man.
I remember some things.
That's nice. Okay, so in Illinois, 1960, the top 1% took home 3.4 times the median worker.
Okay.
But according to the Illinois Economic Policy Institute, a place I visit frequently.
Of course.
By
newsletter.
By 2014, that gap grew to 14.3.
Jeez.
The way they actually say it is at least 14.3. That's a big income gap.
Mm-hmm.
From 1960, when we had a nice, good tax rate at the top margin. Again, Illinois is a little bit different.
Yeah, Illinois is unique.
Yes. Now, nationally, 40% of all wealth is controlled by the top 1%.
Heard that.
In 1970, the richest controlled only 10%.
Right.
Historically, American has kept this kind of inequality in check by a higher tax rate at the top margins, but now the top margin is still the 37. I think it's 37% currently.
Right.
And
it's allowed, and it's been a sustained.
Right.
So.
And when Illinois raised taxes temporarily from 3% to 5%, analysis from the Better Government Association found that lower income people left while the rich people stuck around. Meaning Illinois is boxed into this corner where constitutionally we're only allowed to tax people currently at a flat tax rate. We need more money because of a ballooning pension deficit that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And our hands are tied. The lawmakers' hands are tied because 2% of income of people at the bottom, that's a lot of money. That's bread, that's eggs, that's milk. To rich people, another 2%.
Well, I think it's a proportion deal, right? Of the wealth. So I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, yes. So in 6 of 8 states that enacted a millionaire tax since 2000, private sector economic growth met or exceeded those of neighboring states since they enacted the tax. And we've talked a lot about it.
Contradicts things. People saying would kill the economy.
Yeah, the 2 places that didn't, I can't remember who the other one was, but the one that didn't work out specifically was Connecticut, and Connecticut had a lot of other things going on. So there's a reason people that are against the fair tax use Connecticut a lot.
Right, fits your narrative.
Fits the narrative, yeah. So we've talked a lot. I've talked. You've listened. Thank you. We've talked a lot about income tax, and if you look at that alone, you may say, well, the rich are already paying their fair share in this country, not in Illinois. Stepping back a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Feds. Yep.
Yeah, we have the. Is this going to look right? Is that the right
Yeah.
way? It's going up.
That's going up.
Going up, and that's how it would look. But so you think the rich are paying their fair share, but even if you look at the income tax, the corporate and property tax, and the estate tax, you'll still get that look like, oh wow, the people at the top do pay so much more, But if you add consumption tax and payroll tax, you're going to find that most Americans are paying about 25% of all of their money, income, to taxes, while the richest are paying closer to 22% of their incomes. Because consumption tax to us is a huge part of our budgets. Like, if you have millions.
If you define consumption tax?
Sure, yeah. If you go to the store and you buy pants or food, there's going to be a tax on that.
Right.
That's your
sales tax.
Yeah, gas tax.
So why do millionaires pay less sales tax?
Because they have more money. It's a percentage based on percentage of income.
Okay, you're saying it as a percent of their income what they pay, that it's less.
It's nominal, yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
So why you can't fix that? You can't have a graduated sales tax based on your income.
No.
That would be.
How would you do it?
How would you do it? Right.
I'll go in there. I make $5. I need this thing free.
I know.
No tax for you.
So, again, it doesn't sound like much, but if you consider the 2% versus 22% versus 25%, but again, if you consider how progressive taxes are supposed to work, where the rich are giving a higher percentage of what they get, it's a very broken system in our country right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're all paying about the same, and that's
even between 22 and 25%. It's not that much difference.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It should be. I mean, why is somebody making $30,000 have to give 22% of their income away, 25% even? I should have picked a number I could do math on. $100,000 give away $25,000 versus someone who makes $2 million and they're going to give away $500,000. Like, they're not hurting for somebody as much. Like it's a different ballpark.
Yeah, I think the only argument I see, forgive me.
No, you're good.
The only argument I really see that goes against that would be that, and again, this is not something that I'm, supporting, but I would just say that the only argument I could come up with against that would be that if if you would take it too far, well, really at any level, but if you were to take it too far in terms of how you taxed the rich, it would be possible for someone in their circumstances to argue that, well, now you're flying in the face of capitalism because you're telling me that there's a cap on how much I can make. You know what I mean?
I mean, yes, and no. And I get that. I
Yeah.
do.
And I'm not again. I'm not saying that's where I'm going to stake my line in the sand. I just feel like we've talked before. I'm not like a champion for rich people out there or anything.
Right.
My thought is, my true feeling is that you have to have the whole spectrum of incomes. Otherwise, you don't have the wealthy that put money back into programs that we need. But also, I think that there is a valid point. It shouldn't be 37% of people making $100 billion or whatever.
To use that made up scenario I had, if you're making $100,000 a year and you're paying still 25, let's just make it simple, 25%, you're only accruing $75,000 actually. You know, to better your life, to try and
correct. It's 75 grand.
Right, versus the guy making $2 million.
We'll just do $1 million.
Sure, yeah, doing $1 million.
He's bringing home $750K
every year. Like, he's gonna get ahead much faster than someone who's able to put away just $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so at that point, it's like it doesn't even feel competitive.
No, and it perpetuates.
And that doesn't seem like capitalist either.
Well, I don't know if we'll go down that path because I mean, in the truest sense, it is a complete free market.
I know.
Let's shelf that one for now.
Well, but again,
but it's maybe not American.
It's not American, and then you have I like the thing I used earlier, the fiscal responsibility. You have a civic duty.
Correct.
To help.
That's American.
That's America.
Totally.
Yeah. So just a couple statistics, and I'm done. The 5 highest income taxes in the country right now is California, which has a 13.3, Hawaii, which has 11, Oregon, which has 9.9, Minnesota has 9.85, Iowa has 8.98. I know for certain most of those are progressive. I do not know if all of them are. I would assume so because I refuse to believe anybody is getting taxed that high on top of federal income by a state. Maybe really? At the lowest end.
Yeah.
So I know California. That's the high end. That's the top margin. It's 13.3. And so I also know if you combine sales and income tax, which I think is telling, the top 5 are New York at 12.7, followed by Connecticut at 12.6. New Jersey is at 12.2. Troubling thing, California, Wisconsin, Illinois, all tie at 11.
Wow.
And that is my concern with Illinois. If we are going to already be that high with a combined sales tax, and now we're going to increase the income tax, we either need to be averaging that out with tax cuts to the low middle class, or we need to be finding other taxes we could retire
at the local level.
Why would we do that? Why would we ever do that?
Well, not. Excuse me. Now, well, one reason why you would want to is because to your point, you need to be able to offset somehow.
Yeah, correct. Oh, yeah. But local is they need the money. It have to be the state level.
Oh, I know. But think about this: someone's going to pay for that.
Someone's going to pay for that.
So if the local municipalities aren't going to lower their taxes to offset the higher state income tax, then the state's going to have to do something to pay those localities. I don't know.
And that's what me and Chelsea got into that too, because we were talking about how. I think they're starting to make Amazon pay sales tax based on your state.
Correct.
That didn't do crap for the local economies that lost their Macy's or their Sears.
No. That's literally just state income.
Yeah, and that.
That's why malls are getting destroyed.
I know, and that's why local government is so important right now, guys. Getting involved with your local government.
Malls are going to become Amazon distribution centers.
I like how we're starting to reclaim events, or like not events, but things to do. I don't know what the right word.
Because
now it's Elevate. Now it's not a shopping store. It's Elevate, or it's that kids bounce place, or whatever the heck it is.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like I described Elevate twice, but I really was meaning 2 different things.
Correct.
I think you know what I'm talking
about.
Totally.
Yeah. The other bouncy place here in town. There's one over in Peoria.
Jumping jacks.
Yep.
Oh, in Peoria, that's
There's one called Elevate though in Peoria where you have like trampolines.
That's right here. They put that in the shop called Shopco.
I'm pretty sure they have another one in Peoria then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they put it right next to Planet Fitness here.
There you go, man.
I feel like I should like try to go run, like run a 5K and then go try to like jump on the trampoline, do leg day, do a 5K, and then go to Elevate.
Right. I don't want to do that. I see those kids bouncing around like I would break my neck.
Dude, that's my biggest fear. Like I hate being like I don't want to be a helicopter parent. I really don't. But like at the same time, I'm like that is objectively dangerous. Stop doing that.
Dude, I tell my kids all day, every day to stop doing things that I know I'm not letting them be kids to do. But I'm like today, Eleanor's screwing around with the gate latch. I'm like, don't put your fingers in there. She's going to get pinched. Guaranteed the wind's going to blow back and going to bite her finger. And it's like, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm like helicoptering, but I'm not letting you get your finger pinched off.
Everyone's like got her fingers in the door crack in the bathroom looking through. I'm like, stop! Harry's like playing with the door.
Yeah. You're just imagining that sucker.
Yeah, dude. I remember that story with you too. Oh.
Yep.
The door.
Yep. Anyways.
So,
this is a good one.
Yeah, this is our 26th show, Separation Part 2, and Texas.
That's right. I don't think we have a theme yet for the next one, but stay tuned. It's going to be good, like this one.
Yeah.
Probably another week.
Hopefully,
Knock the sucker out.
That would be good. I got another production gig.
Yeah.
So I'm doing another mix for another person.
Hustling.
I know, growing a business very slowly.
That's right, man.
But I'm so glad you guys took the time to watch us today. And I forgot to look at the camera when I started talking about taxes, so I'm going to have to review the film to put the timestamps in. So if there's timestamps...
I got it.
You did?
Yep.
Nice.
I wrote it down.
Teamwork.
Yep.
All right, everybody. I'm going to grab the mouse now so I can be ready to stop this, but I don't have to be looking off screen to the last thing. I will look deep into your lovely eyes and say thank you. I hope you have a nice day. Have a nice week.
That's right. Take care, folks. We love you. We'll see you soon.
Goodbye.